Welcome to the Fire Podcast. I am so excited to share with you the interview that I had with Tiffany Chin. Tiffany is an absolutely amazing realtor. She does around $40 million per year in closed volume. And unlike the sort of natural born killers that we interview often, Tiffany does it in her own way. She does it in a soft way. She does it in a relational way. Not everyone is the killer salesperson. And one of the reasons I was so excited to visit with Tiffany Chin is how does she create so much success, with a kind, soft approach, and 40 million on her way, no doubt, to 60 or 80 million dollars, doing it the Tiffany Chin way, which is really extreme contact with her database and taking care of her clients like nobody else. Okay, let's get into it. I'm delighted to have you as a guest, and I promised you that we'd have fun. So I know I cheated a little bit by preparing some, and I told you not to, but we want to get we want to get at the heart of the Tiffany Chin success story.
Great. Well, I have no idea what to expect, so this will be a wild ride. I'm excited.
I love it. You make it look easy. I know it may not be. Is it easy?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's not easy, but I think, in this business, there is, as there is a certain level of, calm that you need to bring to each transaction for your own sanity and for your client's sanity.
Right.
Just to get to the finish line. And I think it was definitely throughout the years like a good test of resilience and
for sure
humility and just one day at a time trying to figure out what we're going to do next.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. I appreciate you saying bringing calm to the transaction. I certainly, having a view of 8,000 transactions a year, the ones that go real sideways, there's not a lot of calm in the transaction.
Right.
And sometimes it's just the deal. Sometimes it's just, it's the hand you're dealt. On the other hand, the hand you're dealt can be played very differently.
Right.
And I do think that I wouldn't have said it. That's why we interview people. Bringing calm to a deal is an underrated. It's underrated. Right. So what does that look like? It's like something's going sideways, or wow, there's this new wrinkle in the deal that we found. Oh my God! And the other realtor is freaking out. And how do you muster that?
That's
calm?
A good question.
Or how do you use that calm to your advantage?
At the end of the day, I remind myself and those involved that we all have the same goal, to make it to the finish line. And how we get there and how difficult or easy it will be depends on how we all work together, how we communicate with each other, the collaboration or lack thereof. So I think there's that. And I think there's some part of this business where you have to know enough to figure out who you need to bring in to problem solve. There's no way we can know everything.
Know enough to know what you don't know.
Know enough what you don't know, and know that there's someone else whose expertise that is.
Right.
And you can, bring them into the conversation. And it's a lot of times that helps to diffuse any situation.
Sure.
I think when there is conflict, you feel it. You learn from it, and then you figure out how to move forward from it. I think that is what keeps me sane in any given day.
Is there a formula that you would use to address a conflictual, obviously conflicts are going to happen, and there's going to be, generally there is some conflict, right? And then it's just what's the conflict about?
Right.
Is there sort of a formula or a way you deal with that conflict in particular?
I think in conversation, whether it's written or verbal, I acknowledge how the other party's feeling. And then I address what we know so far and what the proposed solution is moving forward so that we can move forward. And building into that conversation what, reminding them what the ultimate goal is pretty effective.
I got to tell you, I'm glad I asked that question because, the first thing is sort of acknowledging the other person's feelings, which is a step that's missed. So like, wow, I could see how you would be so shocked or surprised or disappointed by this.
Right.
And then, here's what we know right now, which is what I heard you say. And then also very importantly, with an end in mind of here are some suggested solutions.
Right.
Otherwise, to do it differently could be to focus on the problem, and then you focus on the problem grows, the problem becomes the focal point instead of the solution. And then also the other piece sometimes that people will miss that by focusing too much on the problem without the solution. So that was your sort of second half of the thing. But then also just acknowledging like, wow, this is surprising. There's a scary moment here, or, this could, this is the kind of thing that could totally disrupt the deal, but here's what we know now, and here's a way to move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And I can also tell, just by the way, different people I interview or different people I talk to have different demeanors. You have a very calm demeanor.
Oh, thank you.
I love it.
Right. It does help.
Am I allowed to say, like, your production? You do a tremendous amount of business.
Sure.
Am I allowed to? What's
You're gonna ask me what it is?
Yeah,
I don't know. I
sort of do know because I do a little research. But
okay.
I know you're routinely doing in $35 to $40 million dollar volume range, which is it's a very significant amount of business. And one of the things is, and that's why I also said I think from the outside, it might not be true. From the outside, you make it look easy. Maybe it is easy. In which case, that's great. We'll find out now. We'll tell everybody, like, this is easy. Here's how you do it. Have you seen sort of a gradual climb in your business? So, sort of year after year, doing a little more, doing a little better, or have you had, quantum shifts during the 12 or 13 years?
I would say that it was a gradual incline in our business. And then we've been pretty steady. Obviously during the pandemic, we spiked.
Sure.
With how crazy the market was then. And that was a huge catalyst for our team to take that next step too. Because at that point, Rachel was was my assistant, and
Correct,
we just couldn't handle what was coming to us, the business that was coming to us. So we had to quickly move her, pivot her to be a buyer specialist on our team.
Right.
And breathe through that. And luckily, because it was so crazy, there's not so much overthinking that you can do in that moment. So that was a good blessing, to be able to move her over to that position so I could focus on the seller side of things. And I think from there we've held fairly steady. There was a year, I forget which year, where we did dip a little bit. And now we're pretty back on track, I would say.
It's the one thing I keep hearing, and I talk to a lot of realtors, is it's a weird market. So to stay on track in a weird market is good.
Absolutely.
And I want to I guess I would just ask more questions about that now, because I do want to sort of get the evolution of your business. But while we're on it, how do you keep your business on track when it's a weird market? And I'll give you an example. I talked to a realtor who we both know, and he's been in the business so long and does a great business. And I was actually talking to sort of the head of his team, and he's like, yeah, we have like 13 well-priced listings, meaning like, okay, so if you have listings and they're sitting, generally it's like they're overpriced, okay? But he's like, we have like 13 well-priced listings, and then like I'm running around with a few really qualified, and those are not selling. And then on the flip side, at the very same time, same market, I'm running around with some qualified buyers, and we're like in multiple offers and losing. He's like, we're and they did level things out, but that was a moment of of like, what the heck is going on?
Right.
Yeah. How do you
That's a good
manage
question.
through this? Do you do anything different, or you just do you?
I don't know that I do anything different. A huge part of our business has always been our database, our
Right.
sphere of influence. And I think inherently in that source of business, there is a steadiness that comes with that, because you're working with people who already know, like, and trust you.
Right.
And life changes, things change in their lives where they have to, sell and buy,
Right.
and maybe they decide that they want to be investors. It's an evolution of their own lives. But what we do is, we stay in very close with our sphere, with the people in our lives, and it's always been that way. The other layer that I from the get-go, I always felt like in this business you have to do the actions that you're supposed to do to bring in business, and then just have blind faith that it's going to work, right?
So do the stuff, and then know if you're doing the activities
Right.
that it's going to happen. And there's probably like 10 follow-up questions from each of these great answers.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like,
Where do we go from there?
Yeah, because I do want to go back to the
Yeah.
beginning, but then, you've given me such great stuff
in
that
this.
I have to ask follow-up questions on that as
Yeah.
well. But I will dive back. So you come out of UCLA, you decide, hey, I want to go into real estate. Oh, you had a job. I think you were with SBE, right? So that's the hospitality chain, right? Restaurants and hotels,
Yes.
right? And what were you doing with them?
I was assisting the director of real estate there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
And what was your degree in it? In UCLA?
Psychology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Psychology. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
So I was in that industry straight out of college. Dabbled in some wedding planning, and just kind of realized that I had more of an entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
I was not very good at working for someone, I must say.
Interesting.
And it kind of went both ways. It just wasn't the right industry for me.
Right.
It wasn't the right environment or culture. So that's actually why I was very attracted to working with Joey at the Keller Williams Larchmont
Right.
office. That
Right.
I just wanted a wholesome, inviting environment to work in, where
And environment matters.
environment matters. The people who you surround yourself with matters, and in that environment, I could feel like, okay, I can build something from here. But I had dabbled in, going back to wedding planning a little bit, I had dabbled in that, loved the creativity of it, and that I was creating something that could become a vehicle to, change people's lives. But I was very young at that point, and I thought, I don't really know who would hire a wedding coordinator if they're going to get married right now. So I had already had my real estate license for probably 4 or 5 years at that point.
Wow. Okay.
Got my broker's license and decided to dive into real estate.
Got it.
Actually, a good friend of mine suggested that I give real estate a try. He said, you're already licensed. Why don't you just do that? I thought, yeah, I could do that. So just gave it a go for 2 years is what I set my mind on. I said, let me give this my all for 2 years, see how it goes, and reevaluate every year from there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because it does take time to launch a career.
It
And
does.
I know people that, I know some realtors that crush it that did almost nothing in their first 2 years.
Wow.
I also know some realtors that crush it that did like really amazingly well in their first year, but it does take some time.
It does.
So you first started out working on a team.
Yes, I did.
And what caused you to, because you come out of an environment like, hey, I really feel like I want to work on my own, but then you start working with a team. So how did that
evolve?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Well, going back to earlier, I expressed that I wasn't sure that I wanted to stay in Los Angeles.
Right.
And so I was hesitant to build a book of business
Okay.
if I wasn't sure about that. And so a title officer who I met along the way as I was interviewing at different brokerages suggested that I join a team. And just as he mentioned that at Pete's Coffee outside of our office, the red team passed by and he made the introduction. And at that point, I was already at the tail end of my search for a brokerage that would be a good fit. And I thought, okay, let me interview with them. If they want me, then maybe it's a sign that I should be here at the Larchmont office. So, yeah, that's how I started. And it was a great opportunity to, dive right in, get into business fairly quickly. Real estate takes some time to gain some momentum, but it was a way to get in more quickly than I think I could have on my own. So
for sure,
that was a great way for me to get started. People often ask me if that's how they should do it, and I say it really depends on you. Everyone's so different as far as what existing contacts they have and what launching pad they have to start off their business. So
I mean, I would find it so difficult to go out on my own and start from scratch. Luckily, there are a lot of programs that will teach you what to do.
Right.
Although, you can't learn to ride a bicycle in a seminar. And I do think that going to seminars helps, but being around a team that's very productive and seeing what they do and like, wow, this is working, or I might even do that a little different is a great way to learn the ropes for sure. And of course, the red team is great. I know them.
Yes.
I know them quite well, and they do a great business and have done for years and years and have great systems. So
absolutely.
So that's helpful. Where do you get, because I know you said database and I know that's important. Different people get business different ways. Tell me what you do to get your business.
So I was fortunate to go to school where I've decided to start this business. So
right.
UCLA. At UCLA. So during that stint at UCLA, during my education, I guess, I also joined a business fraternity, Delta Sigma Pi. And from that, I didn't know it at the time, of course, but I was surrounding myself with very like-minded individuals who were business-oriented, personal development-oriented, and people who would go on to become professionals. And so just naturally, they became my bread and butter from the get-go as they started their real estate journey. And from that, we learned that you need to keep adding to your contacts, adding to your database. You need to feed it. So I also layered on top of that a business professional group, Bruin Professionals, which I've been affiliated with for maybe the past 7-8 years now. So it's a business professional networking group strictly for UCLA alumni.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Bruin.
Bruin Professionals. Yes.
Yeah. Business professional.
Yeah, business professionals. Yes.
And you're probably the president of that by now.
I am. How do you know all this? Did you run a background check on me?
I've known you a long time, and I can't say I didn't do a little bit of research in addition to that. Yeah. Here's the thing. Lots of realtors are going to see this podcast and they're going to go, wow, that's great. She went to a fancy school, UCLA, that's a fancy school. It's in LA, that's a fancy town. And, now she's president of this Bruins group, and of course she's going to get business. There are so many realtors in the city right now that graduated from UCLA that are not doing that. Wherever you went to school, there is that leadership opportunity, there is that networking opportunity, and it's really seizing that opportunity. I think we all have that opportunity. Your particular journey has a particular set of opportunities, but every journey has its own. And it's just whether you sort of step through that door or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to kind of launch that. I think from the get-go, I remember learning probably from some kind of Keller Williams training that, you need to lean into your discomfort. So that was a huge mantra for me.
And that
starting
was,
out.
so it was, it wasn't comfortable.
No. Every day in the business for me from the beginning was highly uncomfortable, very, very uncomfortable. And someone taught me to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Sure.
Yeah, so that was something that was replaying in my mind all the time from the beginning. I started when I was 24.
That's amazing.
That was my what do we call it? A drunk monkey.
Right.
From the beginning of my business. So, I just put myself in situations that were uncomfortable. So I would go to networking functions where I knew no one and force myself to go after work, meet some people, and introduce myself, and
First of all, I think doing that which is uncomfortable, probably most people don't do that to begin with. And then, because I talk to a lot of realtors, and then once they do that, they would go to a networking event, or some people are even very connective. They might be more connective than you and more connective than me and still get less business. So how do you convert that sort of networking opportunity to, let me represent you on a purchase, which for everyone, by the way, is people are always purchasing like at the edge of their limit. It's always a massive purchase.
Right.
Even like my super wealthy clients, they're like, it still feels like, it's never like, oh, well, no big deal. I'll buy this house. It's always at the edge of comfort.
It's hard to explain. Well, from the get-go, I developed a system where I would go to these networking events, make sure that I had connected pretty closely with at least 3 people.
Okay.
At least 3 people where I felt like I had befriended them.
Okay.
I used to tell Joey this all the time, that I felt like I was in the business of making friends.
Right.
That's
literally
what it is.
True. Yeah.
And then just staying in front of them in some way. I mean, I am not a salesy person. I think you've known me for a very long time. That made the thought of being a salesperson was actually very cringing for me.
That's why it's so cool, because the amount of business that you do, and this is a piece of the interview. Like, I'm not going to let go of this, because it's really, I think it's really where you can help so many people, where we can help so many people, because, here you are, you're like, Tiffany's nice. Let's look at the flip side, right? The flip side is, I know realtors that do less business than you. I know realtors that do the same amount of business that you do, and they are like so aggressive and so, like on it, and, hey, let me represent you. What are you, there's one script, which, by the way, I think is a good script, and it's so basic, taught to me by a massive realtor. And he just says, hey, what are your plans to buy, sell, or invest in the next year? What plans do you have to buy, sell, or invest in the next year? And that's his opening thing.
That's a script.
Yeah,
it's
it
easy.
Might not be yours.
It probably would. Very honestly, it would not be.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I play the long game in some ways, in that my expectation when I meet someone is not that I'm going to work with them right now. If I happen to be in the right place at the right time, great. But, I'm there to make a friend who then, I probably connect with on social media pretty organically, because I want to say, like, I did enjoy meeting them, so I want to let them know that I enjoyed meeting them. And then they are naturally added to my database because we are very consistent with social media, our e-newsletter that has been going out every other Saturday at 8 a.m. for the past, 11, 12 years, something like that. So, the idea is that I made an impression on them, my actions are speaking for themselves. I don't need to sell anything because they see that I'm in business and trust that I know what I'm doing. And when they have a need, they will come my way.
See, now we're getting at it because, again, just because I've done this so many times, you were sounding like the realtors that I talk to who do very little business and who will continue to do very little business, sounding like. And here's what I mean by that. I'm going to this networking event. I'm really there to make a friend or make 3 friends, right? Or I'm that's what I do for a living, is make friends, is what you said. But I want to connect with 3 people at this networking event. And I'm not thinking about doing business with them right now. So there are different schools of thought in real estate coaching and real estate, developing a real estate career. And so, for example, nowadays, of course, a lot of people know Tom Ferry. Tom Ferry came from Mike Ferry, right, who was the OG coach. Right. And if Mike Ferry were sitting right here, because I know his coaching method and I know people that were his top coaches. And if Mike Ferry were sitting right here, he'd be jumping up and down and screaming at us. How about that?
At
Not
me.
just you. Yes, he'd be screaming at you.
He would be.
Yeah, he'd be screaming at you because it's exactly the opposite of what he teaches. Now, what he teaches, I will say, it absolutely works. And there are a lot of people that follow him that method, and it works. And it's like, get to the truth faster, move through the database faster, talk to as many people as you possibly can. And the more people you talk to, the more likely you're going to bump into somebody who's ready to buy, sell, or invest right now. And those are the ones that you need in order to do a deal right now. By the way, all of that makes sense. And that's not your style. It's also not the style of, it's not everybody's style. It's not most people's style. But what you hit on was this, and that was being very consistent, okay? And you said that you do a newsletter, but like an e-newsletter, is that what you call it?
E-newsletter.
You do an e-newsletter.
Through MailChimp.
Okay.
So we have a MailChimp newsletter that goes out every other Saturday.
Okay. And here's what I heard. I heard that you send it out every other Saturday at 8 a.m.
Yes.
And you've been doing that for how long?
At least 10 years, if not 11.
Okay. And how many times do you miss it? Do you we didn't send it, we forgot to send it, I didn't feel well?
In the beginning, in the first couple of years, maybe 4 times, but never again.
Wow.
Yes. Well, people like to know what to expect.
That's correct.
Yes. And so if you deliver on something consistently, you are now reliable. And I think the hardest thing for realtors to be sometimes is reliable, right? And, things happen, but, if you're in charge of a large purchase or sale for someone, they want to know that you're going to be there for them, that they can count on you. And so that's a small way that our professionalism speaks for itself. I mean, people think that it comes every Saturday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I get that. I understand. I know what you're talking about.
We have one avid follower who emailed me one Saturday and said, "Are you okay, Tiffany? I didn't hear from you this week." And I thanked her for being such a loyal follower and explained to her it actually comes every other Saturday.
That right there is the piece of the podcast that people have to hear and have to understand. And that is, if you're not going to be that aggressive salesperson, if you're like, that's not me, I'm going to do it a different way. That consistency, what you just said, is more rare. To have, a never miss every other week newsletter, it's more rare than somebody who is so aggressive and chasing down the business. And that's what it kind of builds a spring in a way, so that there's a sort of momentum that's caught up with that. My partner in Beverly Hills, Josh, is one of those guys. So he does the daddy and the dude thing with his son. It's sort of a leadership message that he does every Sunday, and he's been doing it like 5 years. I'll have to guess. It's like 5 years, maybe even more. 4 or 5 years, because his son is now 9. And he's like, yeah, we missed it like 3 times in 5 years or 4 or 5 years, and that alone. So in unpredictability, the flip side is unpredictability, and that the chaos that is associated with unpredictability creates stress and anxiety. And so the flip side is a level of predictability reduces chaos, and it reduces stress and anxiety. And a real estate transaction is stressful and anxiety producing.
Yes. It's a very emotional experience for people.
Right. And that newsletter, it does more than just convey the message in the newsletter. It's like, hey, I'm here. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. How many people are on your, how many people receive your newsletter?
I want to say around 5,000 or 6,000 at this point. Yes.
Do you know open rates? Or,
I do not know.
Okay.
I wish I did.
Yeah. With stuff like MailChimp, it's easy to see. And then, you have open rates, and then you have unsubscribes, and you have all these things that you can measure. 10 years ago, when you first started it, how many people did you have on your list?
Maybe 250.
Okay.
If I was lucky, maybe 500. I don't know.
And those 250 or 500 would basically be like the people that came out of your cell phone, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you grow it over time? So let's just say we looked right now, or you said about 5,000. Let's say we look right now, there's like 5,123. You have your assistant. We have your assistant. Hey, how many are on the mail? How many subscribers on the MailChimp? Between 5,000 to 6,000. Okay, I was hoping they were going to look at it and go 5,123. And then what's the open rate and what's the unsubscribe rate?
We can look that up.
Okay, look that up, and we'll add it in. But then maybe Tiffany will tell us to cut it out. But yeah, look that up because it's interesting. So whatever the number is, this week, how do you add? Well, first of all, you're probably adding 3 per event, right? But you're not going to build from 250 to 5,000 on 3 per event, really.
I sat a lot of open houses in the beginning, just over the years.
So you're just
we've been in
picking up
business for a long time.
You're picking up names from open houses.
Exactly.
You're getting names from
events. From events. We throw client events where we ask we invite our clients to bring a friend. We do all kinds of
You're
fun.
teaching stuff.
And informational things. Yeah. This Saturday we have a buyer masterclass that we're hosting. And
how do you advertise that? You're going to put that on social media?
So it lives on Eventbrite. We advertise it on social media. We advertise it on Nextdoor. Through our newsletter, of course. I think, we send mailers to our farm too. So,
how big is your farm?
We just started our farm, so it's kind of small.
That's cool, but you see how cool that is. That's cool that
we're just starting to
drip
there.
That's great. Because now with doing the business that you do, you're like, oh, we're just starting to farm. Whereas other people, and farming's expensive,
Right.
And other people are like, well, this person crushes it, and they're sending out all these mailers, and we don't have the money to do that because there's really a divide, and one of the divides is prospecting versus marketing.
Right.
And marketing is the stuff that you pay for and you send out, and prospecting is the thing that you're doing when you're going to an event or when you're meeting people face to face. And people like to avoid the face to face, and they're going to hide behind the marketing. The best way to do it is prospecting enhanced by marketing. Marketing enhanced by prospecting is not going to work.
Right. I agree
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, we're starting with this. We're prospecting with this buyer masterclass.
Right.
And we are advertising that as the way to enhance it. You know, we always think in terms of, you know, layers to, okay, if we're doing one thing, where else does it need to show up? So we can leverage one thing and maximize exposure for that. Because if you're going to spend the time and energy hosting that masterclass, you might as well try to maximize that attendance, right? And engagement and how
For sure.
effective it'll be.
For sure.
So, I mean, we've been hosting this masterclass for, I think, probably 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, twice a year for the last 13 years. So there are definitely foundational things that have been consistent throughout our business. And as we grow and aspire to grow even further, we have to layer in another pillar of prospecting, right?
And I imagine like 13 years ago when you host your first masterclass, you've got like 3 attendees or whatever.
I think I was lucky enough to probably get about 12
Wow,
at least.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And how
So,
many are you getting now?
This time we have like 25 RSVPs.
25. So it's
Yeah.
interesting, right? You're still at it, and it's all these
Right.
many years later. You started out with 12, and you know these many years later, you're only at 25, but still finding that a very good use of
Yeah.
your time.
It has been because, you know, people will attend it as many times as they need to before they're ready. And then it's kind of cute. You know, we have clients who say that they are graduates of this masterclass and they post on their social media to advertise it to their people. So it's gained enough momentum now
Sure.
that it makes sense for us
Sure.
to continue to do it. Yeah.
It's one of the things I love to do when you know, because I learn so much when I talk to great realtors like you, and I'll just like certain moments. I was talking to a woman who also was a real estate coach. Her name is Cece Underwood.
Okay.
She does quite a bit of coaching. She does a lot of business. She's got a huge team, doing like 200 million, you know, at a smaller price point. So she's like really crushing it. And during COVID, I interviewed her, and she was telling me about doing Zoom events. And one of the Zoom events that she was doing was she was hosting a cooking class. And so she got this like really, you know, like A+ chef to do it. And then they sent out the list of ingredients for all the people and her database is like, you know, 5,000 or 10,000, whatever. Database is huge. She's like 5,000 in her database. And then, you know, she's sending it out. And I said, tell me the whole process. You know, it's like, oh, well, first we send out the invite, and then we, you know, whatever. And then I have my team call through, and they're calling, and they're sending the emails, and they're all this sort of thing. And, you know, and at the end of it, I asked her how many people attended on Zoom, right? And she said, we had 11 attendees. And I was just like, you know, like what? I mean, you couldn't believe the process that she did. And then she did like after the event, she did this whole call through again.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so you did all of that and you got 11 people. And she's like, oh yeah. And she seemed very excited about it. I'm like, if I did that, I would have told my team like never again.
Right.
You know, so tell me why that works. And she's like, oh, well, you know, and then she did have her staff handy. So like, oh, well, you know, we sent out the first email, you know, it was 5,000. We had a 20% open rate. So we had actually 1,000 people open it. And then, you know, we had maybe just 100 respond. And, you know, most of them said thanks, but no thanks or whatever. And then we actually had 30 people RSVP yes, and then like 11 turn up or whatever. And I'm like, okay. But it was the consistency that she reached out, so much so that she said, let me give you one example. I saw somebody in the street and they're like, "Oh, Cece, how was the thing, or whatever?" And she's like, "Oh, it was great." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I couldn't make it or whatever." And because she knew the person, just for the heck of it, she went back and opened her email server, MailChimp or whatever it was, and the person had never opened that email.
Oh.
So in other words, it was just like it just went into their email.
Right.
It would have gone into the 80%. It went into the column of 80% unopened, but they just read the headline,
Right.
and the headline was like, "Hey, cook with us on Zoom with famous chef so and so Saturday at 6 p.m." And they looked at it and they're like, "Wow, Cece's cool." Sorry, I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
At Next, but it was still having an impact, not even just on the people. Like even on the people that didn't open it, it was the ones it's not working for are the ones that will unsubscribe. Even she's like, being ignored is fine,
Right.
no problem. And if they unsubscribe, they really don't like me, and that's okay. They don't like what I'm doing, they should unsubscribe, no problem. And her unsubscribe rate was very, very low, but her open rate was maybe 20%, which really means of these thousands and thousands of emails that she's sending out, like the overwhelming majority of them aren't even getting opened, but she found real value in that.
I mean, you're imprinting on people. Whether or
Correct.
not they open it, they see that you're present. You're doing something. Maybe you're doing something interesting.
Right.
And they ask you about it. So you are making an impression on people and just pinging their memory about you. And they kind of feel like they're still a part of your life. And that's the thing. Like, we're here to build a community.
Right.
I know that we were talking about building a business where like you're much more aggressive, but for us, we're building a community. You either want to be a part of it or you don't. But we're gonna be in real. Became clear after a couple of years that I was going to be in real estate for a lifetime. So my goal wasn't to get one transaction from someone.
Right.
It's to be the realtor they think of for the rest of their lives. And so you have to.
And how do you do that?
Well, you have to walk a very fine line of not turning people off from you. And I knew that I would be very uncomfortable being an aggressive realtor who's a salesy person, because I don't like salesy people. So why would I want to be that person to other people? So, I think that's what works for me. I think people understand that, and so people who gravitate towards that gravitate to me, and that's okay.
So, newsletter every other week, 8 a.m. What's in the newsletter?
So we have our just listed,
Okay.
just sold, pending, any like fun happenings going on in the UCLA community, since that's a big part of our brand as well.
Okay.
And then also any like special events we may be hosting. So for this Saturdays, it'll be our buyer masterclass. And then there's also a segment on the bottom that shows all of our library of small business spotlights.
Right. I knew about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, we, created this series to highlight local business owners to kind of help them through that time. And now it's evolved into a spotlight of, women who are in business. Because that's a huge part of our brand. We have this passion for empowering women through real estate. And so we like to reach out to our community and bring in business owners who are women and feature their businesses. It's our way of, giving back to the community.
I love it. Is there a call to action in the newsletter?
I think at the end it says something about, if you or your friends and family have any questions about real estate, reach out to us.
Reach out to us.
Call, email. I think we have both. Is that what it says at the end?
Yes.
What does it say?
This is great. And one of the things that we'll do, by the way, is and this would be great for your newsletter. In the show notes, we'll put a link to your newsletter.
Awesome.
So maybe you'll get another 2, 3, 4,000 extra subscribers.
Okay, so we end the newsletter with that's a wrap. Have a wonderful weekend and email us with your or your friends and your family's real estate needs. Stay safe and everyone get some rest.
I love it.
Super casual.
It's kind. It's very Tiffany Chin.
It is
for sure. Well, that's great because there's an authenticity, and I think that's what it is, that authenticity that really is part of your superpower. I might add something that people are, and it's just me, it's not you, it's just a suggestion. I might add something about, about interest rates or the market a little bit, Is there anywhere in there that you say, are you interested in getting a value for your home?
I don't. We don't have that. We do include one of those, we do include an article that has to do with, or an infographic that has to do with the real estate market.
Do you think it would be outside of your voice or would chase people away if you said, like, hey, if you're interested in learning the value of your home, let us know, or click here?
Yeah, we could definitely add that. We just haven't. It's still within our voice. I think it's an easy.
Do you think that would
ask.
be useful?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to add that.
I love it. Okay. So you get your newsletter every other week on a never miss, which I love. And then you do your buyer mastery class twice a year. What other things are on your regular?
We have a seller masterclass twice a year. So that's 4 solid informational events per year for the community. And then we have a VIP loyalty group that we call our Sapphire group. So that group consists of anyone who has ever bought, sold, or referred us business in the past. And so they're part of an elite group that gets invited to more personal functions. So we have, I want to say, at least 4 other events per year.
And how many people are in the Sapphire group?
Oh, God. See, I knew I needed to study some numbers.
No, that's fine.
You'll find out.
I would be interested in how many people. Is it rough? I mean, you can be rough. Is it 100? Is it 500?
It's got to be about 500 people in the loyalty group.
Do you ever go deeper in the loyalty group of, like, so if your loyalty group, if your Sapphire group is 500, did you ever think about, like, the 50?
The 50, the cream of the crop of that 500?
Yeah.
We do. We do. So this year, we invited our top referrers to my house for a brunch, like a home cooked brunch.
Wow, that's cool.
Just to thank them on a smaller scale, like a more intimate setting, I suppose.
Yeah, people really appreciate that, and it really does encourage. So one of the things I want to dig into a little bit is, somewhere in there, and this is a difficulty that people have, especially when they're relational. And so you've got, like, that sort of hard driver that's like close. Probably what we would work on with them is relational stuff. But you're so relational and have such a great business. There's got to be a point in time where, yes, you're making friends, but what happens when you make friends and they ask you, dozens of real estate questions, and you turn around and they've used somebody else as their realtor?
I wouldn't say that I find out about that often, but if they do, it's fine. I mean,
okay, I like that. I like that attitude, and
you don't at the same time.
Well, no. It's great. It's great if it works for you. The challenge that I personally have is, my friends will come to me. because I'm not actively selling in the same
Right.
way, but my friends will come to me once a deal has gone totally sideways. They'll be like, "Oh, Paul, you got to help me. I'm in this, $10 million transaction." And I look at who the realtors are, and at least one of the two of the realtors has no idea what they're doing, and maybe it's even the person that my friend hired. And I'm like, I gotta unfix this mess for
Right.
these people, and they get paid for me unfixing their mess. So I have had that frustration.
Right.
But I just wonder, okay, so let me say it a different way.
Yes.
You're meeting these people. There's some point where you're converting it to business.
Yes.
So again, I'll give you another example. It's by way of example. I coach somebody who does a tremendous business, and that business is all the area where they live, and it's also the kids' school. So he's getting like all this business, and he's so good. He's like you. He gets all the repeat business, and he barely ever misses someone that has transacted with him before. He's got all that wired, and in coaching with him, he's saying to me, "Listen, I want to increase my price point," which is what almost everybody says. It's not always the best way to make more money and save more time or whatever, but sometimes it is. I want to increase my price point. I want to do, whatever deals. And then as I dig in with him, he went to law school and he's about my age. And like all of his law school people, like, you're crushing it with your UCLA business alliance, but many of his law school people are like very successful, including his friends. He's got close friends that are very successful, and he does a great job in the transaction. And he's not asking them for business. And I'm like, why are you not asking them for business? He's like, well, I don't want to mix the friendship with business, and it just feels awkward to me. And I asked him, do you think you see the realtors that he's using, and I know this guy's an A+. You see the realtors that he's using. Do you think those realtors are doing a better job than you? And he's like, to be honest, no. And I'm like,
Right.
why do you not want to do a better job for your friends than they're currently getting and get paid
Right.
and move from the 2 million to the 5 million? Like, that's the straight line to it. And in coaching with him for a fair amount of time, you can't make somebody do something.
Right.
You just create awareness and you hope that they make a pivot. I just really didn't get him to do that. So you're now talking about, so he's not selling to friends. He's selling to people in his neighborhood.
Okay.
And then he's also selling to parents at school. He's
Right.
crushing that.
Okay.
How do you convert the friendship to the transaction?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I don't know that I'm doing anything profound. They know my work ethic. They've seen my work ethic. They know that I'm passionate about what I do. I mean, I was that friend in my 20s who was at, a New Year's Eve party with all of them at a house, and I would be in the corner writing an offer or
Right.
talking to my clients on the way to, like literally on my laptop, on my phone, on the way to our cabin where we were staying. Like
They were
I've done,
watching
they
you
were
do it.
watching me all this time. So they know that I know what I'm doing, that I'm dedicated to my clients, and they hear from each other what I do. So I think my track record and what they've seen speaks for itself. And then they refer me to other people. And so we've been a very referral heavy business. And the other layer that we have on top of that is, we ask our clients for testimonials.
Okay,
we
that's
do
great.
leverage that too, because then someone else is, for millennials at least, and many of our clients are millennials or Gen Xers, it seems that they want to hear about someone else's experience. That speaks volumes over anything I could say to them. Obviously, I'm biased. I know that I do a good
Right,
job, but
right.
telling them I do a good job is not going to necessarily be what wins them over.
Right.
They want to see a proven track record, right? So with my friends, it was always easy. Maybe there were like one or two who didn't work with me, but I wouldn't even be able to tell you who they are because there are that few of them that
Uh-huh.
have worked with someone else. And if they did, it was probably because they had a family friend or their parents were involved and their parents wanted them to use someone else. It was always that kind of dynamic that had nothing to do with me. So I don't take offense to that. Everyone has a different history or a different way about going to, decide who their professional is going to be. So.
Got it. One of the things I've watched over time is, we really study the business, and when you're looking your database, a lot of times we're looking at 2 transactions, let's say per 12 people in your like closer sphere, and generally looking at one is a buy or a sell, and then the other is a referral. And as I've watched over time, I've seen people maintain that buy and sell number, but I've watched the referrals drop off. So in other words, I've seen sort of the history of it getting harder and harder to get referrals.
Right.
And yet you've got a lot of referrals. So one thing is testimonials. What else are you doing? And then you're rewarding them a little bit or a lot?
Through client events, and we have our VIP loyalty group. So we have some type of giveaway or invitation to something every month. On the first of every month, we have a giveaway for our loyalty group. So that's our way of, also staying in front of them and reminding them that, we survive and thrive over from referrals. What else do we do? Yeah, there's no doubt that, I need to do a better job of asking. I think that's very clear. I need to know what is a way that I would feel comfortable doing that. These have all been ways to,
and you've
for me
been
to do
evolving.
It. Yeah, I've been evolving
I'm
over
watching
time.
What do you do with your tests? You said you asked for client testimonials. What do you do with them? Do you do them in video? Do you do them in writing? Do you go for a Google review?
So they review us on Google, on Yelp, and I think on Zillow also. So those 3 platforms. And then we showcase our testimonials. We have Testimonial Tuesday on our social media. So each of those testimonials gets showcase. So those are mostly written ones. We do have a few video ones too that we actually got from our last holiday party that
that's cool.
we hosted at my house.
And that's great, because if you keep that in mind, you could actually be very purposeful about that and have like a videographer on the ready.
Exactly.
And say like, okay, well, hey, would you be willing to do a testimonial? If they're like, no, okay, next, yes, okay, here's the videographer, let's go. What do you love about working with Tiffany, or what's your experience been? Yeah.
So we have video format too.
What are you doing on social media?
What are we doing on social media? So we have Tuesday testimonials, usually Monday or over the weekend. It's something personal that I'm personally posting, just because, it is a very personal business. So
sure,
I need to have a presence on there. I get really weirded out when it's all business stuff on my page.
Yeah.
So, my team does remind me to post something personal at least once a week. It really should be more than that. But.
And what platforms are you using?
We use Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
Primarily.
Are you getting any direct leads from Instagram or Facebook, or is it just out there as part of your?
It's more so just for, just to have a presence in those who we already know or have met along the way. Yeah,
I get it. I was just teaching a social media thing for realtors today, and the first thing I asked them was, what are your goals? What do you want to do?
Right.
And the person who was opposite me was like, well, I want to be seen as an expert. I'm like, okay, that's great. And do you want to, and I think that's smart, but do you want to get business from social media, or do you want to generate your own business and then you want them to see that you have a good presence?
Right.
And they're two very different. They're two very different strategies, and obviously, the getting the business from social media is a lot bigger lift, and it's a lot different,
Right.
different activity. And yet,
Right.
I think it's key at a bare minimum to support your needs, to support your professionalism. Sorry.
Right, and it's for like brand awareness. Like
Correct.
that's more
Correct.
so what it's there
Correct.
for. And to bring them close. Bring people into your life in some way. It's another way to do that. When you're not face to face.
Okay, let me do this. I'm going to switch to. I'm going to ask you sort of fire round questions,
Okay.
and then we'll switch the camera just a little bit, and then I'm going to go up here. I'm going to ask you some questions about your business, and maybe we'll get like a little mini coaching session.
Okay.
We'll either use it or not use it. Is fine.
Great.
So. Okay, so this will be our fire round.
Okay.
And
Can't wait.
I gotta
Let me.
make sure our other guests don't hear this because they'll get a preview, but that's okay. So I'll fire round, and then each one of these things could be like 10 minutes. So I'm gonna ask it, you answer it, and we'll just move on. So
Okay.
we'll call it fire round.
Perfect.
What's your idea of perfect happiness?
That's a big question to ask. My idea of perfect happiness would be creating a community of, those who I care about and can pour into, both in the real estate world and, those who are in my personal life. I think real estate is a great vehicle to do so too.
What's your greatest fear?
My greatest fear. I have a phobia of free fall.
Okay. What's your favorite childhood memory?
It probably has to do with my grandmother who passed away probably, I want to say maybe 8 years ago now. She used to tote me around everywhere. I used to beg to stay at her house. And I remember I would just kind of be her little shadow. So anytime she did something, I would copy her. And, there was one, she liked to retell the story that she would pick something up with her feet. And I did that once, and she scolded me for it because she was like, that's really disrespectful. You should not be picking things up with your feet. And then I responded, but you do that. And, I think that was just a very endearing memory from, my time with my grandmother,
Wow.
who was a, huge advocate.
I love it.
Yeah. What's
the best compliment you've ever gotten?
Oh, these are really hard questions. Someone once told me that I seem to be unflappable. That was a big compliment.
What's an insult you've received that you're proud of?
What's an insult that I've received that I'm proud of? One of my mentors very early on, I don't know if this is an insult, but he told me that if I continued working this late and this long and this hard, that I would quickly burn myself out. And I was determined to prove him wrong. But of course I did prove him right. And had to recover from that.
What do you consider to be the most overrated virtue?
trying to separate your business from your personal life.
What talent would you most like to have?
Oh, I wish I could sing and dance. That would be a lot of
Me
fun.
too. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
I wish that I could have a little bit more of this quality of going after business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I am a go-getter. I definitely work very hard and am not afraid to do that, but I'm very anti-salesy, and that probably does get in my way sometimes.
Mm-hmm. What's your greatest extravagance?
It used to be my car, but I decided to grow up and get rid of the Jag.
Nice. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
How I inspire people, how I make people feel. Yeah,
Nice.
helping people feel accepted and seen.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you did a big hike, you
Okay.
climb up this hill,
Okay.
really, really big hill, and there's some great vistas in LA in particular. You get to the very top of the vista, and you look down, and all of your people are there, your friends, loved ones, clients, colleagues, everyone's down below you, and you shout one thing. What's the one thing you shout?
You can do it.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're
It's
so
been
welcome, Paul.
Such a pleasure.